Set 10 has some of the biggest leveling changes we've seen in TFT for quite some time because now you can reach level 10. They changed all the leveling odds. They changed a lot of the experience needed to reach certain levels. So let's get into how to play all the different types of playstyles in TFT, including standard, fast 8, and all the rerolls. But let's just get right into this. A lot of people are coming from the meta snapshot wondering what is standard leveling, because we see it in one of the comps over here. But luckily we have the leveling guide up. It's this little button right up here at the top menu, and let's just get right into it. So I list out all the levels. So we have the levels on the left-hand side here, along with what stages you should reach that level. Green means that you should usually be at that level, at that stage 2-1, which you could see at like the top of your screen whenever you're playing the game. Red means that you rarely level on that stage, but it still could happen. And then yellow means you situationally do that. So that means some cases you do, some cases you don't. But generally, you're going to be going for green. Let's go ahead and start off with standard reroll. So standard reroll, when do you want to do this? You generally want to do this if you want to play flex, and maybe you don't know exactly what you're doing, or if you're going for a comp that has multiple carries at different costs. So if there's a comp that only likes 4 cost carries, probably not a good idea to do standard leveling. Instead, you would opt for something like a fast 8. However, with standard, if you have a certain comp that has a good carry at 2 costs, good carry at 3 costs, and a good carry at 4 costs, then it's going to be perfect for that type of comp. Again, if you're flexing, it's also really good because it's just like the regular way to play. So probably the most important one, you'll do this in maybe around, let's say maybe 50% of your games, and then all the other ones maybe like 10 to 20% each, depending on what the meta is like. So let's get right into it. So the first thing you want to do is reach level 4. You automatically reach level 3 in TFT at the start of the game. So the game really starts at level 4. So you want to get to level 4 generally at around stage 2-1. And people almost always do this if they're trying to like play for like a semi-win streak or kind of like preserve their health in the early game. It's going to be the way to go, because when you are playing standard, you want to kind of have a bit of life because you aren't like all-inning on a certain strategy. So lose streak starts, while still good, are not like the preferred method when you are doing standard leveling. Of course, depends on the meta, but for most of them, you want to stay as healthy as you can. So level up to level 4 at stage 2-1. Rare cases, you do it at 2-2. Sometimes people do not like to level up early in the game because if you have a lot of 1-cost pairs, you want to stay level 3 so that in your next shops, you get higher odds of 1-cost units. Speaking of odds, we have like a list of champion odds down here. It shows you how often a unit is supposed to show up in your shop based on your level. But going back up into standard leveling, you only go to level 4 at stage 2-3 if you are going for a lose streak and doing standard leveling. Again, not as popular as going for win streak starts. By the way, in case you did not know how to buy experience or level up, in the bottom left while you're in game, you can see how much gold you need to level up. So in some cases, it doesn't cost that much at all, but in other cases, it costs a ton, and you can only buy gold in increments of 4 by pressing the Buy XP button. When you do it enough times to reach the threshold to get to the next level, you level up and you get to play additional units and get better shop odds and headliner odds. You could also bind this to a hotkey such as pressing F, which is the default one, and that's generally what I use because it's easier to use my keyboard. So back to standard leveling. To reach level 5, you generally do it on stage 2-5. This is after the carousel round in stage 2. And again, if you're going for a win streak, going to be really powerful to do. And I'd say in like 90% of games when I am doing standard leveling, I'm going to be reaching level 5 at that level. The only time I don't is when I'm going for a super lose streak while still doing standard, which is pretty rare, in which case I'll do it at stage 3-1. You could do it on 2-3 or 2-7. Some people do it on 2-3 if they want to get like a turbo win streak going, but those are rare situations. And sometimes you need to do it on 2-7 because you don't want to lose to Krugs if you're lose streaking. Another thing I forgot to mention is you do not want to roll at level 4 or level 5.
Do not roll. Do not roll.
I'm gonna roll.
Next, we have level 6. Level 6 is a little tricky because in the early game, Econ is so important and you won't be able to get a lot of gold and reach level 7 or level 8 if you level up to level 6 too quickly. So you generally want to have around like 30 plus gold. Some games you might only have 20, really sucks, but there are other games where you have like 40 or 50 at that point and you're able to level up still. It depends on how good your Econ was in stage 2. It also depends if you got a lot of gold from the neutral rounds in stage 1 and stage 2 also. But I'd say in like 95% of games, I'm reaching level 6 at stage 3-2 when I'm doing standard leveling. You only go level 6 at 3-1 if you are on a full win streak and you want to keep winning and surprise some other people who don't really level up to level 6 at that point. And you could get some free wins that way because you get a lot of gold from win streaking. So let's talk about win streaking a bit, because you get a bunch of bonus gold whenever you are on a win streak. And if you spend a lot of gold making your team stronger, you don't really lose the gold because you gain it back when you get the win streak gold. You could get up to 3 bonus gold for win streaking, as you could see in this chart here. So let's say you are an Econ master and you like only having 50 or more gold to get 5 gold of interest. Well, you could get the same amount of gold if you spent 30 of it and have 20 afterwards and only make 2 gold of interest, but gain the 3 bonus gold from the win streak back. You kind of don't really lose anything in those cases, because if it does actually guarantee you the win, it's well worth the investment. But generally, when you are on level 6, you don't really want to roll that much. You only roll in 2 specific scenarios. If you have a lot of pairs, I'm talking about like maybe 4+ pairs or something like that. Or if you are low health and you have some pairs. So this can be anywhere from just rolling like 10 gold, which isn't that much, or you could roll 30 or even more. Generally, I do not roll past 10 gold because it's so hard to get your first bit of interest. It's like when you are making a lot of money, and you know how they say the first million's always the hardest? Not that I know what that's like, but they say the second one after that's really easy. So if you look at all the rich people in the world, you have like Warren Buffett, for example. It took him a very long time to get his first billion, but afterwards he is at like, I don't know, 100 something now. It like goes up so quickly. He probably got to his second billion like in, I don't know, less than half the time he took to get to his first billion, which is insane. But the way he's able to do it is because it's a lot easier to make money when you have money. And the same is true in TFT. So don't go past 10 gold because you need to at least get 1 interest gold per round in order to meet the next thresholds after that to build up. So the only time I go to 0 gold is when I'm about to die or if I'm like super desperate and tilted. So like, yeah, obviously you shouldn't be tilted. So just try to play better and only roll down to 10 gold if you need to. Another thing you want to do is sell your 1 cost headliner to find a 2 or 3 cost headliner if you do decide to roll. Obviously, if you're not rolling, which is in most cases, I'd say maybe like 70-80% of games you're not rolling on level 6, just keep your headliner. But if you do decide to roll a lot of gold, sell your 1 cost headliner to find a 2 or 3 cost because they are a lot stronger. Next up, we have level 7. Only go to level 7 if you could keep at least 30 gold after leveling. It's a good general rule of TFT, always keep 30 gold if you can help it, and you generally reach level 7 at either stage 3-5 or 4-1. If you have a ton of gold early, a lot of games you are able to reach it at 3-5, but most games are doing it at 4-1. Very rarely will you do it at 4-2, you only do that if you are super broke, but hopefully that's not the case because you listen to this guide. So typically you want to roll a little bit after reaching level 7 because you definitely need to stabilize your board. In stage 4, that's when player damage starts to hit a little bit hard. So if you have any bit of pairs, maybe 2+, plus looking for like some other units such as 4 cost, maybe like a key 3 cost that you don't have yet, you generally want to be rolling at level 7. If you're super healthy, maybe roll like 10 gold. If not, roll until you are stable. That could be anywhere from like 20 to 40 gold. If you're lucky, it might even cost 10. But if you already have upgrades and have good health, you should look into doing a fast 8 strategy instead, which we'll get into right after we're done with standard leveling. That strategy focuses more on 4 costs, and it's really powerful for later parts of the game. Now for level 8, you want to again have 30 or more gold after leveling. You want to do this at around stage 4-5 or 5-1. So if you have a ton of gold, do it at 4-5. If not, do it at 5-1. And you're usually rolling a lot of gold here, like 30 to 50 plus gold on level 8, because again, in the later parts of the game, your life total matters so much. It's like the most important resource. So you want to conserve it as much as possible by spending as much as possible. And unless your board is already magically 2-star, or if you are 80 plus HP, you're generally not going to be thinking about level 9 yet. So what you want to do is sell your 3 cost or lower headliner, find a 4 cost headliner in a lot of cases at level 8. It might take some time to do. You don't always have to sell your 3 cost, but if you're rolling like 50 gold, sell it. If you're only rolling like 20 gold or 10 gold, keep it. That's generally the kind of rule I use because at level 8, the headliner odds are going to be around 70% for 3 costs, 30% for 4 costs. So if you're not rolling that much gold, you're likely not going to get a 4 cost that you actually want. But if you are rolling a ton, you have to risk it for the biscuit sometimes. Next up we have is level 9. So at level 9, you're going to reach this at pretty late parts of the game. So this could be as early as stage 5. Generally, it's going to be around like 5-5 or 6-1. And at these points, you want to roll all your gold after you hit it, or you just level up to level 9 and have no gold left. So sometimes you need to put a really key unit in. Sometimes you just have nothing else to really go for. that's when you kind of want to reach level 9 and 10 because most of the game is going to be done at level 7 and level 8. If you're looking for specific legendaries, obviously you need a bunch of gold to roll, so there are going to be 2 different scenarios where you want to reach level 9. One of them is, again, when you just need to add in an extra unit for a trait, just level up to 9, doesn't matter how much gold you have. However, if you want to look for like specific legendaries, you want to have around like 20 to 30 gold to kind of play around with in order to kind of hit them. Obviously, the more you have, the better, but we don't live in fairy tale lands. Sometimes you don't have as much gold as you would like. So now on to level 10, pretty rare to hit level 10, but if you can't realistically get any 3-star like 4-cost units, for example, or if you really need to activate a crucial trait breakpoint, definitely explore level 10. All right, now we are in fast aiding. So fast aiding is very similar to standard because you need to get what's good for your 4-cost comps, and most comps, they revolve around their 4 costs. So this one's going to be a lot easier than standard because we already went over it. So level 4, it's pretty much the same thing as 4. Do not roll. Level 5, do not roll. Reach it typically on 2-5. Level 6, reach it on 3-2, but you do not roll here. That's where we kind of deviate from the standard leveling. When you fast 8, you want to have as much gold as possible so that when you hit level 8, you are pretty much virtually guaranteed to hit some sort of stable 4-cost board. Ideally, you want to have around 2 2-star 4 costs in order to make the fast 8 kind of like worth or whatever. Obviously, you don't always get it, but that's like the dream, you know? You can have one hope and a dream. So at level 7, also don't roll, but you could level up to level 7 on stage 3-5 if you have huge econ that game. 4-1 is typically when most people do it, but 3-5 happens pretty often. Maybe it's around like 35% 3-5. Oh, that makes sense. And then maybe around like the rest percent at stage 4-1. Afterwards, you have to decide. Had you leveled up to level 7 at stage 3-5, you likely could do a 4-2 level 8. Happens in a lot of cases. If not, go ahead and do it at 4-5, and then just roll all of your gold after you hit level 8. Sell your headliners because you want to get your 2-star 4-cost headliner. And the reason why you sell your headliner, even though the odds aren't that high, it's around, let's see what it is. For 4-cost at level 8, it's 30% chance for a 4-cost headliner. Since you're rolling so much, you should have like 50 plus gold in a lot of cases. Sometimes you'll only have 30 plus. Most times you'll have 40 plus, but essentially you have a lot of rolls to hit a really good 4-cost headliner. And worst case scenario, you take a 3-cost, but you want to get a lot of your bread and butter of your comp here. You're also going to be selling most of your board anyways, so you have a ton of gold to fish around with, even though you might not have like 50 plus gold. After you sell your board, you will have the equivalent of like somewhere near there. Pretty simple after that. Worst case scenario, you level up to level 8 at 5-1. I don't know why you're doing a fast 8 in these cases, but sometimes you can afford to take the hit and wait until stage 5. The only time I would kind of do this is if I am winning every single round, I'm at 100 health, and I'm not forced to roll down really quickly at 4-2 or 4-5. In those cases, it's very rare. Maybe like 5% of games, you could level up to level 8 at 5-1. All right, next up is level 9. When do you want to reach this? Typically, if you leveled up to level 8 at 4-2 or 4-5, you likely rolled all the way down to 0. So it's a little tricky to get to 9 in some cases because you have to start from the very beginning. But maybe around like stage 5-5 or 6-1, that's typically when you're going to hit. If you rolled down at level 8 and you hit everything and you still had like 30 gold left over, that's the dream. That's a high roll. And it does happen sometimes. So you need to know what to do in those games. You can level up to level 9 at either 5-1 or 5-2. Obviously, it depends on how much gold you actually get because sometimes it's just not possible because you don't have enough gold ever. But typically around like 5-5, that's generally like a pretty early one. And then 6-1, 6-2, generally when you're going to get to level 9. After you hit level 9, you want to roll all your gold because the end game's pretty much there and you want to be as strong as possible. Getting to level 10, it's just stage 6 and beyond. If you have nothing else to do, nothing better to do with your gold or your life, just go level 10, pretty much all there is to it. Next up, let's go over 1-cost rerolling. So this one is completely different than everything we've discussed so far because 1-cost reroll is the bread and butter of beginner TFT. Very powerful the lower rank you are because it's very simple to play as well as the very top players when doing 1-cost reroll for like the first half part of the game. So all you have to do is do not press your level up button. You know how before we said at level 4 and level 5, do not roll when you do fast 8 or standard. With 1-cost reroll, do not level. Just never touch your leveling button. I cannot tell you how many times people tell me I couldn't hit my units because your guide sucks. And then I told them to send me a replay. They sent me a replay and they leveled up. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? You can't level up. So You gotta listen to the guide. So when you're doing one cost reroll, you never want to level up because unit odds are very important. Let's go down to unit odds. One cost units, at level 1, you 100% get them in your shop. Level 2, 100%. Level 3, 75%. Level 4, 55%. Level 5, 45%. So every time you level up, the chances get lower and lower and lower of getting one cost units, which means you need to be staying as low level as possible. All right. So what do you do at level 4 though? At stage 3-1, that's the round right after the Krugs or those rock-looking creatures. While you are still level 4, roll down to 30 gold at stage 3-1. If you have 7 copies of your units after rolling down to 30 gold, then you are allowed to roll another 10. If you hit another copy and get to 8 copies after that, roll another 10 again. That's all you have to do. If you don't have 7+ copies after rolling down to 30, just econ back up, go all the way to 50 gold, and then you hit level 5 naturally on stage 3-2. At 3-2, you want to utilize what's called a slow roll. A lot of people ask me what slow rolling is. In TFT, it is the act of rolling down to 50 gold every single turn. So let's say you were at 70 gold, roll down to 50, wait until the next turn, do it again. However, during the slow roll, you have to think of one thing and one thing only, and that is when are you going to all in? All-inning is pretty much just rolling down until you hit all your units, and you typically want to do it if you have 6 or more copies, or if you're at stage 4-1. At stage 4-1, that's the point of the game where things start to get a little spicy and you start taking a lot of damage from your losses, so you have to all in at 4-1 to hit all your units. That's a very important thing that people don't realize. A lot of beginners, they slow roll all throughout stage 4, and like even though it's unlucky that you didn't hit your units, people write those games up because they're like, hey, I didn't hit, game didn't want me to win this game, so I guess I lose. But no, there's something you could do about it. You could risk it for the biscuit at stage 4-1, roll all the way down, because that's kind of like the final chance you have to kind of save a ton of HP during stage 4. But before that point, if you have 6 or more copies of your unit, and I'm talking about the most important one. So if we're playing like Olaf reroll, and we go for Tahm Kench 3 and Olaf 3, if you have 7 copies of Tahm Kench, does not really affect your decision making that much. If you have 7 copies of Olaf, definitely does, because Olaf's the only unit you care about. So if you have 6, 7, or 8 copies of Olaf, you might want to consider all-inning, or at least doing what's called fishing. Fishing is rolling around 10 gold at a time to see if you get an additional copy of your unit. After every time you hit a new unit, you can kind of reassess if you want to roll a bit more. Typically, on average, you get around 1 unit every 10 gold. It's not an exact math, it's kind of like a trust me bro, but that's a very easy approximation that most people can use. Next up we have is level 6. So after you hit all your 3-star units that you care about, so again, using the Olaf example, that's going to be Tahm Kench and Olaf 3-star, you want to level up to level 6. So it really depends when you hit your unit. Sometimes I even hit my 3 stars in stage 2. Sometimes it takes me all the way into stage 4-3 to hit my 3 stars. Whenever it happens, that's the time where you save gold back up and level to level 6 as quickly as possible, especially if you have a good unit to play on your bench. And often when you're doing one cost reroll, you definitely do have a lot of good units on your bench because you are rolling and buying them throughout that time. So you get a pretty big power spike when you level up because you drop a 2-star unit in. Contrast this to when you did like a fast 8 level up, for example. When you go from like level 8 to 9, you're probably putting in just some random crap unit that you found earlier on. But when you're level 5 to level 6 and you're rerolling, you definitely have a strong unit to kind of add in, and it makes your team like so much better. After that, level 7 typically happens around stage 5, but if you're high rolling, it happens during stage 4. Just hit it whenever. Level 8 happens during stage 5 or 6. Level 9, stage 6, and then level 10 rarely happens because you spent a lot of gold rolling earlier on, but if it does happen, it's probably going to be in stage 7. Maybe if you're super lucky, stage 6, but you don't really have to worry about that. All right, next up we have is 2 cost reroll. 2 cost reroll is similar to 1 cost reroll in that you want to not level up or roll during the early game. Typically, you hit level 4 on stage 2-3, which is what happens when you gain experience naturally because you gain 2 experience every single turn. After that, you want to hit level 5 around stage 3-1 or 3-2. Sometimes you even hit level 5 during stage 2-7 if you need help beating the Krugs. And then after that, you just slow roll at level 6. So at stage 3-2, most of the time, you'll have around like 40 gold level 6, or you could reach it at 3-5 and have 50 plus gold. After that, you can either stabilize or slow roll. So most people slow roll, they just roll down to 50 gold every turn, buy all the 2 cost units that they care about, and then go on with their day. If you are super low health, let's say you lost like 40 life or something like that, you might want to be a little more aggressive and like stabilize first, roll down to like 30, and then econ back up to 50, and then slow roll after that. It really depends on the state of the game, but another thing you need to think about is the all-inning or fishing part that we talked about before. Fishing is when you're like trying to see if you're getting lucky and then going deep if you do, or you like roll 10 gold, don't hit any units, and then you stop there because you're like, hey, probably not gonna be a good time to all in. Again, I like to use the rule of if you have 6 or more copies and 50 gold, I like to try to find my units if I'm like running low on health. But sometimes if you're like super healthy, you could greed it out a little more and wait till you get 7 copies. Also, we do all this slow rolling during level 6 because level 6 has the highest odds for 2-cost units to show up in your shop. Right now, they are at 40%, which is considerably higher than every other level. So that's why you want to do 2-cost reroll at level 6. After that, you just level up whenever you have the goal to do so. Level 7 normally happens late stage 4, early stage 5. You typically only do this after you get your crucial 3-star units at 2 cost. So if you're going for Gnar reroll, if you have a 3-star Gnar, go ahead and level up. If you're doing a Phelios reroll, whatever it may be, it could be something like Twitch reroll, literally any 2 costs that you can think of. Once you get your primary carry to 3-star, go ahead and go to level 7, and then look to see if you could get to level 8. Next, for level 9, you typically don't have enough gold to reach this, but in some cases, when you're like winning the game really hard, you could go to level 9. But generally, you want to roll a little bit at level 8 to find some of the 4-cost units that belong in your comp that give crucial synergies. Maybe throw some leftover items on them. But sometimes you do have the luxury of going level 9 sometime in stage 6. And then level 10, likely not going to happen, but you could hit it in stage around 7. But stage 7, you typically only play like 1 or 2 rounds. So it's very difficult to hit because you're spending so much gold. Next up we have is 3-cost reroll. So 3-cost reroll, let's look at the odds. What is the best level to roll for them? So level 8 actually has the highest odds at 36%. However, I recommend doing it at level 7 at 35% because you have a lot more gold to hit your units. 3-cost reroll is an extremely risky build. So if you go for 1-cost reroll, you're pretty much always gonna hit your 3-star 1-cost in like most of your games because it's just much cheaper to do. You have a lot more rolls to do it with, and you do it much earlier in the game. For 2 costs, it's kind of like a middle road. It's like you generally are going to hit it, but it doesn't happen all the time, and you lose out on a lot of those games where you try to go for it and you don't hit. 3-cost reroll is super duper duper expensive. If you do not hit your 3-cost 3-star, you are screwed. All the 3-star 1-cost units are going to beat you. All the 2-star 4-cost units are going to whoop you as well. So you are kind of stuck in a limbo mode for quite some time. I really only like going for 3-cost reroll if I get either an amazing start for them, I have champion duplicators on my bench, or if I have like a ton of gold, ton of health that it doesn't really matter what happens. 3-cost reroll also shares a bit of patterns with standard leveling because sometimes you don't force a 3-cost reroll. You just play the game and then you see that you natural a lot of units that you like. Let's say you're going for Samira reroll and you naturally get 4 Samiras. You're like, maybe I should go for the Samira reroll. That's how you gotta approach 3-cost reroll. You can't just go into the game and force it unless it's super duper duper S tier. But if that's the case, a lot of people are gonna be fighting for the same units. And unfortunately, there are only 17 3-cost units in the pool, which means that only one player can get a 3-star 3-cost unit because it requires 9 units to do. And if there are only 17 in the pool, it's not gonna happen for the second player unless something extraordinary happens. With that being said, let's get into the rerolling pattern. So you want to level up to level 4 at stage 2-1. You do not need to roll. You could do what's called a lose streak start and level up at stage 2-3. That is very possible as well. If you're hard forcing it, you do the lose streak start. At level 5, you reach this typically at stage 2-5, but again, if you're lose streaking, you do it at 3-1. For level 6, it's most likely going to happen at 3-2, and this is where a big decision point happens. So if you did a lose streak start, you definitely need to stabilize your board right now. Sometimes you could roll all the way to 0, looking for 2-star 3-cost units, and then stopping there. So if you have like 40 gold, definitely roll down to at least like 20 in a lot of cases, unless you're super duper healthy. But we're talking mainly about the lose streak start players. So if you've been lose streaking, you definitely have to roll a ton of gold, sometimes all the way to 0, just looking to get maybe 2-star 3-cost units. Definitely sell your headliner because again, at level 6, the chance for a 3-cost headliner is around 25%. If you're rolling a lot of gold, you'll definitely see at least something that's playable. Obviously, there are some 2-cost units that belong in a lot of 3-cost reroll comps, and if you see a headliner of those, definitely you can settle on them because the goal during stage 3-2 is just to stabilize. It's not to like win the game. It's not to finalize your board. It's just to stabilize so that you can econ back up, hit level 7 safely, and then find all your 3-star 3-cost units there. So speaking of level 7, typically want to reach it on stage 4-1. This was what happens in maybe like 90% of my 3-cost reroll games. And you want to slow roll at 50 gold. So a lot of times you already rolled beforehand at level 6 to get your 2-star 3-cost, which means you don't need to stabilize as much at level 7. So at level 7, your main focus is to just slow roll and then find a time to all in. All-inning typically, again, happens when you have 6 or more copies, but sometimes I like using like the 7 or more rule in most cases. Another thing you have to consider is if you are going 3-cost reroll and you are level 7 and you do not have many copies of your unit, what you might have to do is either bail and pivot to a different comp, or you can consider going level 8. So if you have 4 or less of your desired unit, do not slow roll at level 7. It's often going to be a waste of gold unless you get super lucky or if you have like a reroll augment such as golden ticket. But in most games where you don't have those, you need to reach level 8 instead and try to just crank out like a top 5 or a top 4, or slow roll at level 8 and hope that you are able to hit everything there. Again, level 8 does have slightly better odds for 3-cost units, but it's only by 1%. So if you need to reach level 8 early, such as in the scenario we described before, you're typically going to reach level 8 sometime during stage 5. If not, you're going to be level 8 at around stage 6, especially when you rerolled at level 7 because it's very expensive to run 3-cost reroll. After that, level 9 happens around stage 6, level 10, stage 7, if at all. So that's going to be the 5 major strategies in TFT for leveling and econ. Again, it's going to be standard leveling, fast aiding, 1-cost, 2-cost, and 3-cost reroll. But before we go, I want to let you know about some general tips you want to have. So in the beginning, you always pretty much want to save your gold. And in general, you save gold if you need to roll at a specific level that you have not reached yet, such as level 8 for 4-cost units, or you save gold if you are healthy, or you save gold if you already have a strong board. If you have a weak board, or maybe you're not healthy, you need to use your gold to preserve your health. So you could do that through either rolling or through leveling up. Rolling is good if you need to preserve your health immediately, because those are the times when you're actually going to make substantial upgrades to your team. You should also roll if you need to complete a lot of pairs that are on your bench, or if you need a specific unit at a specific cost and you are the right level to do so. Lastly, if you need a new headliner, that's the only other time you should consider rolling. For leveling up, you do this generally if you need an extra unit for a key trait, if you have an upgraded unit on your bench already that you want to put in, or if you want to reach a different level to roll for specific units at a specific cost. Keep in mind, after leveling up, you still need some gold in the bank to actually roll with. Even though level 7 is the best odds for 3-cost units, if you get to level 7 and you have 10 gold, you're not going to hit a lot of 3-cost units. So it's better to wait a bit, level up to level 7 maybe 1 or 2 rounds later, and then roll down with 30 or 40 gold instead. Lastly, you level up if you have too much extra gold. You might as well just buy XP because you could only get 5 gold interest per round. So if you have too much, that's another time to consider leveling up. Next, let's talk about leveling augments. So there are a couple augments that change how you level. They're going to be Birthday Present, Clear Mind, Cluttered Mind, Cruel Pact, Cutting Corners, all the tickets, Infernal Contract, Level Up, and March of Progress. Obviously, there are more than these because some just give you more gold, which definitely affects your leveling patterns. But in general, for Birthday Present, you want to be doing what's called like a Fast 8, even like a Fast 9. After that, for Clear Mind and Cluttered Mind, you generally do a Fast 8 and stabilize around level 8. Cruel Pact, you just do 3-cost reroll. Same with March of Progress. March of Progress is actually interesting. You hit level 4 at stage 2-2. You hit level 5 at stage 2-5. You hit level 6 at stage 3-2. Level 7 at 4-2. Level 8 at 5-3. And then level 9 at stage 7-1. Cutting Corners is a good way to fast 8 again, even though it's a silver augment, but sometimes you still play around with level 7. Typically, you don't do any rerolls with them, though. You do standard or fast 8 or fast 9. All the tickets you definitely want to be rerolling. Just pick and choose which one you like the most, depending on what units you're hitting that game. Infernal Contract, since your max level is level 7, you can pretty much only do 3-cost reroll, but sometimes people get 3-star 4-cost all the time. But that's only because you're rolling so much that even though the odds for 4-costs are low, sometimes you just hit them anyway. So definitely go for as many things as you can there. And lastly, we have Level Up. Level Up, you definitely want to be doing Fast 8 or Fast 9. Sometimes you could even do like reach level 10 every now and then, but definitely do some sort of more aggressive leveling with Level Up because that's going to be your bread and butter at the end of the day. It's a very expensive augment because it is a prismatic. So you have to pick and choose between either using it for a lot of tempo early game by playing very aggressively, leveling up early on, or econing a bit with it, and then hitting level 8 really quickly, stabilizing your board much earlier than everyone else, and use it like that. But that's going to round up everything that you need to know about leveling an Econ for set 10. Again, so much has changed because they added a new level, changed the leveling cost completely, and that affects like most of what we do whenever we play a game of TFT. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put up the full guide on the website, bunnymuffins.lol. There will be a leveling button at the top menu, and you can just hit that and check it out whenever you want for like a quick sort of guide. But that's going to be it for me today. If you need to know what comps to play after you learn all the leveling patterns, head on over to the website or tune in every single Friday for my weekly meta snapshot.